Welcome to Hard Hats and Horizons, the podcast where we dig deep into the construction and economic developments shaping the future of Dallas-Fort Worth. We bring you insights from industry leaders and visionaries who are driving growth in North Texas. From construction projects to industry trends and insights, we cover it all. So grab your hard hat and join us as we explore the people and projects shaping the skyline of DFW. Now, here is your host, Andrea Pender.
Okay, thanks for coming to the Hard Hats and Horizons podcast today. We have Jessica Leek. She is the Business Development Director for Datum Engineers, and I'm excited to hear her story. As I was kind of reading through the notes, I know we have a lot of similar background things, so it's funny that we've kind of both landed in business development in the commercial real estate industry. So, why don't you start us off? Tell us how you ended up at Datum.
Yeah. So my first half of my career, I spent in corporate communications, completely not in the AEC commercial real estate world. And then once I entered this world, I started with an architecture firm and spent several years there doing business development, very similar to my role at Datum, a lot of that client services. Excuse me. So I kind of fell in love with the industry there, and really that was my first foray into business development and kind of that client services piece of it. So after I left there, I kind of had a couple stints within commercial real estate. Actually worked for a brokerage firm doing office tenant rep during COVID, which was an interesting experience. A really good learning experience. It opened up a lot of doors. I think that's when you and I met, was when I was there. And so that was a great experience. Also kind of a realization of where I felt like my strong suits really were. And so anyway, that kind of led me back to where I am now. I really like that more traditional business development where it's client relationships and it's really getting to showcase the experience and the services that we offer. And so it's me going out and sharing the wonderful people that we have and the projects that we've worked on, and I just really enjoy that.
Tell us a little bit about Datum.
So Datum has been around since the 30s in Dallas, which is really kind of crazy. Just how long it's been here. It's really funny because that's a nice thing. People already know us. We've done a lot of work. So in terms of my job, it's fairly easy. Like, we have a recognizable name. We have a lot of very recognizable projects. And in fact, sometimes for our renovations, we have people coming to us and saying, your name was on the original drawings.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we do all kinds of work. We have a lot of education work going on right now. So we do a lot of higher ed, a lot of K through 12, but we also do a lot of municipal work. So the Dallas County Records building, that renovation was one of our big projects. And again, I believe that's one of the ones that we were on the original drawings.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's really cool projects around the city. We do have offices elsewhere. I'm local to Dallas, so kind of head down and focus on DFW, but we've got offices in Austin, San Antonio. 2 years ago, we opened one in Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So kind of branching outside of Texas a little bit.
Interesting.
And then we have a hub partner who's also in San Antonio.
Okay.
So that's where we partner with them on a lot of our, especially higher ed work.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting. What are some key moments or challenges that you have had in your career or in your life?
Oh gosh, career or life. I mean, kind of going back to COVID and sort of I think we all had a lot of challenges during COVID. I'm not unique in that experience. For me personally, I had just taken a brand new job that I had spent 6 months interviewing for. I was very excited about it. It was a great opportunity, and I started on March 2nd, I think.
Oh my.
Yeah. So, week 2, everybody went home for COVID. And by April, I was out of a job, part of a big layoff there.
Oh boy.
And later came to find out that the largest company in that space was coming to acquire them. And so I think they were understandably making some quick moves to make sure that kept going. But it was an interesting time to be unemployed and, a lot of shakeup in the market, obviously. And with that particular transaction, a lot of people changing roles in that space. So that is really a moment where I did a lot of reflection of really reached out to my network in a big way, which has been super helpful throughout my career and life. But it was a lot of reflective of what's important to me, kind of that grit and like, well, I've got to go figure out how to continue to make money and do a job and keep my career moving forward. And what does that look like? And so that's kind of how I ended up at the brokerage firm and really gave that a um, good effort and learned a lot. And it kind of got me out of my comfort zone because I hadn't really done that before. So I think that was a really just big learning experience. I think for everyone, nobody anticipated how long that would last. And we're still feeling impacts in this industry of what that means for us and, business or development sidelines still because of just kind of changes from that. So I think kind of doing a lot of reflecting of just what I want to focus on and where my strengths are and, how to network to figure out where the right fit is.
Yeah, I think it definitely was an interesting time because everybody was in a little bit different, personal life or work life, all the things. And I think that being at home made you have time to think, is this what I want to do? Is this the best fit? Or how can I use my strengths? Exactly like what you just said. I can think back in college and I remember some of these students are like, oh, well, you just take the easy classes. And I'm like, well, no, I'm just doing what I'm good at. And I know that I can have that as a job. And I just thought, I wonder, like, do they want to struggle for the next 40 years? Like, are they in the right spot? So
that's a great point. And I think that's a little bit of what led me back to this real true client services role because that was it was different. It was a lot more cold calling. It was less truly relationship based. Obviously, you hoped to build relationships and then win business out of that. But it was a lot more, you know, here's a list of people to go cold call and some people are great at that and thrive on it. And there were people at that company who really did really well doing that. And it was kind of eye opening for me what I tried to focus on in that role. And I think we did some interesting things. Was more of, okay, how can we get creative if no one's talking about office space right now? And that's what we're talking about. We did a podcast, not a podcast, we did um, a panel with some experts in the industry. And so I tried to use some of my background to come up with some creative solutions. But at the end of the day, that is really a cold calling, go knock on doors job. And so I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I had that experience. But to your point, I don't want to struggle my whole career.
Yeah.
I like the client services piece of thing and I'm good at it. So it's been rewarding to kind of come full circle.
I was just talking to one of my estimators and he was like, I really love bidding work for my friends.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately, it's so funny, we have our friends, but I really think we truly have some really good friends who are also our clients or people we network with, and they just happen to be in the same industry. And that's what makes it fun. If you said you have to go out to lunch right now today with somebody, it would probably be a friend from the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, and that's been a nice thing about commercial real estate broadly. Again, I've done some different things in the industry, but Dallas is kind of unique in just how much commercial real estate is driving things here, I think. And I think Dallas, I've been here for 15 years now. I've seen the growth that's happened just in the time that I've been here. And Dallas is we get criticized for this also, but I think Dallas is always open to new growth and new things. And commercial real estate is a big piece of that. And it's been nice to see. I saw this with some mentors of mine before I really got into the space. People do have lifelong friends from this industry, and that's really nice.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we moved to Texas in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And everything's growing, everything's booming. This is definitely the place to be. So I feel like we're lucky that we ended up here at the right place, right time, all that kind of thing too.
I feel the same way.
Okay, so you just touched on mentorship. So talk to us about how have you participated in mentorship? Have you been a mentor? Have you been a protege? Talk to us about how that's kind of affected you.
Yeah, I think sometimes I've kind of been hard on myself because I'm like, I don't have a formal mentor. I don't have a person who I'm like, let's meet quarterly and talk about my goals, which I think works really well for some people. And I applaud that. And sometimes I think maybe I should get more dedicated to doing that. Instead, I think I've had the very fortunate position to have a lot of mentors and influencers in my life. So back to when I was moving to Dallas, I had a job first out of school in Baton Rouge where I graduated. It was a great job. I was there for a few years, and then I really was eager to move to a bigger city.
Mhm.
And so I kind of had my sights set on Dallas. And I really just, that was my first sort of big networking event, I guess. I emailed, I mean, it feels like it was probably 100 people. And it was just, it was everyone I knew who then might give me 2 or 3 contacts
That's
and then
nice.
kind of go from there. And I think from that, I really saw the benefit of staying in touch with people and people helping you and you being able to kind of pay it back. And I remember a woman who really helped me a lot when I first moved to Dallas, who I'm still close with. In fact, we're supposed to go to lunch tomorrow. She really went out of her way to help me.
Nice.
And I remember talking to her a lot about like, I didn't even know you. You were a friend of a friend. Like, kind of like, why are you doing this? She was also from Louisiana, so I think there was a little bit of that. But I just remember her saying, like, pay it back. Like, just keep doing that, and you'll find so many rewards from that in the long run. So that's an example of someone who's kind of been a mentor to me, and I still keep in touch with her. I've had several conversations in the last few weeks with mostly young women, but young men as well, who are looking for a change in their career or to make a move out of a different city. And so I'm constantly, how can I again pay that forward, pay it back? So that's a lot of how it's kind of worked for me, I guess.
Do you need reliable, high-quality service for your commercial project? Choose Carrco, the most trusted contractor in commercial painting, drywall, and floor coatings in DFW. With over 30 years of experience, Carrco delivers top-tier craftsmanship across Texas. From expert painting and seamless drywall and durable floor coatings, we handle it all, on time and on budget. Transform your space with the professionals at Carrco. Visit carcopainting.com today. Carrco, where quality meets reliability.
I think it's kind of nice at this stage of my career, I can do more of the giving back.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't realize how much you have to give until there's someone sitting across from you and their eyes are big and they just keep asking all these questions and you're like, well, gosh, I have all the answers to all of these things.
That's so true. And I think, not everyone is even in the same industry as me who comes looking. And I think that's another nice thing about Dallas. I think Dallas is a very, I know people who've lived here all their life, but it's still a city that's very open to newcomers and people who are willing to invest in the city. And so it's been, for me at least, a fairly easy city to sort of navigate myself in terms of my network. And then, a lot of very willing people to say, yeah, I'm happy to sit down with that person and see how I can help. And I have done a couple formal things. I was in track Young Guns when I was at the brokerage firm, and I did that. I only had a year of eligibility for the Young Guns when I joined, and so I really made the most of it, including doing the mentorship. And so I did have like a formal setup then, and I got a lot out of that. And honestly, I think we both got a lot out of it. I mean, the person I was paired with, he was with a GC, and he asked me a lot of like marketing and BD questions, and he was looking to hire a marketing person at the time. And so I think that's an example of if you're doing it right, it often works both ways. Like both people get a lot out of it.
And I heard that early on in my career. My mentor would always say, oh, I get so much out of this. And I would like leave and I would drive to my next meeting and I would think, how did she possibly get anything out of these 8,000 questions that I just asked her? And this year last year and this year I started mentoring a couple girls. And I get so much out of it. So
Yeah.
I think like now I'm at the spot in my career where I can say that. And every time they leave, I tell them I get so much out of this. And they're like, but how? And so I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe in 15 years they'll be able to experience that as well.
Absolutely. It's easy to forget the questions you had when you were younger or the
Hmm.
challenges. And just things change, right? Like
Hmm.
the economy is different than when you and I first started, or
Right.
it's just different challenges. And I think the approach sort of stays the same, but you just forget that it's so sometimes tough to navigate that without kind of having a sounding board and someone to help you think through things.
And I mean, you can probably remember, but so many times the mentor would give a piece of advice and you would be like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
that's all I need to do. And then you go and do it and it works. And it's nice to be able to pass those things on to the younger folks. You know, they're like, well, I thought it needed to be harder than that.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. It's just simple. We're all humans, we're
Hmm.
people, we're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. What is something that was unique or surprising in your journey that you want to share with us?
Uh, Truthfully, just that business development was a job.
Mhm.
I mean, when I was going through college, I was one of those people who was not, this is exactly what I want to be when I grow up. And I think to some degree, I'm still that way. I have a lot of interests. I know
Yes.
you're the same way.
Same.
And, you know, I feel fortunate that in a BD role, you can kind of explore a lot of those things
Hmm.
because there's some client entertaining and there, just different things that kind of fit into that. But when I was looking to make a move out of more the corporate communications and PR side of things, I don't even remember how I kind of got connected to the world of BD
Hmm.
and what it was, but I was like, oh, networking and kind of relationships is a job. Like you can do this, and there's a benefit to the company and to you, and
Right.
this is your job.
Uh-huh.
And so that was, it seems silly now because I know so many people in a BD role across various industries, but that's not exactly when you're like thinking about what do I want to be when I grow up. It's not like I want to be a business developer.
Yeah, no, that was never a checkbox when I was in school.
Yeah, so that's been interesting. And when I was in college for a little while, I thought I wanted to do interior design.
Uh-huh.
Which is a very small subset of just like the larger commercial real estate world. And I still have a passion and a hobby for it, but I'm much better suited not doing it in practice for my job. And so it's a little funny too. Just I feel like things kind of come full circle
Uh-huh.
in terms of, um, excuse me, having a little bit of relationship, excuse me, to buildings and placemaking and that opportunity to sort of be adjacent to it in
Mhm.
my job, which has been nice.
So I got into this industry I actually own my own photography business for about 12 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I did outdoor family photography,
Yeah.
like business headshots, and the industry started changing. Everyone wanted everything photoshopped, and that was before it was like as easy as it is now.
Yeah.
And so I thought, man, like, what do I want to do? And so there was an engineering firm that gave me a shot to do marketing.
Yeah.
And I sat there for a few months and I realized that the engineers never left their office.
Yeah.
And I nicely said, well, hey, do you ever meet up with your clients? Do you ever have lunch or, do you do anything? And they said, no, no, no. Like if we do good work, we keep getting work. And I said, can I take some of these people to lunch? And I remember their faces. They're like, you want to leave the office? And so that was kind of that's when I was like, oh, there's a job,
There's an
called
opportunity
business
here.
development.
Yeah.
So that's been that was kind of my jumping off point
Yeah.
because that's what I had to do when I owned my company.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to get out and
Yeah.
meet people. So
Yeah. And I think across this industry, there's a lot of obviously practitioners who do their own business development too. Like our managing directors at our
uh-huh.
office are expected to do, excuse me, managing principals are expected to do some BD work as well. But I'm dedicated to this role, and
Right.
it's been rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Nice. What are moving on to kind of some industry insights? What are some things that you guys are seeing with industry trends? Are there any challenges that you guys are facing in the structural engineering space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone is saying we are all waiting to see what tariffs mean in terms
Uh-huh.
of construction
Mhm.
costs.
Yep.
I think there's a lot up in the air in terms of what that's going to mean and how it's going to impact us. So I think that's obviously a question on everyone's mind. It's just like cost of goods, but we've been talking about that for years. That's not necessarily a new conversation. There's just kind of a new nuance to it at the moment, which I think is just true of this industry, right? It goes up, it goes down. Um, I think another thing that we've seen really since COVID across really all sectors is not only flight to quality, which you probably hear a lot in terms of just if we are going to be able to get something constructed off the ground, people want it to be a quality product.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also that sustainability and bringing the outdoors in. I think
Oh.
in COVID, I think we all were like, we are going to all be outdoors all the time, and we're not going to shake hands, and we're not going to, we're all going to have this distance forever. And
Mhm.
obviously, largely all that has sort of gone to the wayside.
Mhm.
But I think one thing that has really kind of remained, whether you're talking office or the other day, I was at a K through 12 conference, and they were showing this new um, middle school that really was focusing on these big glass windows facing this like outdoor creek and areas where kids can gather during the day and bring their classrooms outside. And so I think, and I've seen that in office space as well. And so I think that is something that we have COVID to thank for
Mhm.
in terms of just more, excuse me, progressive thinking and even the elements. And now, again, back to cost, there's always a cost consideration, but the elements of more natural woods throughout, and some of it's that sustainability, and some of it's that bringing the outdoors in a little bit more and
Mhm.
not feeling like we're just in this enclosed box.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know what your middle school felt like, but mine was not very open to
No.
the outside.
Yeah, no.
So I think that's been a really positive thing that, again, I think across all sectors, because again, we work across a lot of different types of industries, and it's nice to see that just quality construction. And again, we have budget constraints and
Mhm. Mhm.
construction costs and things like that. But I think there's a lot more that word placemaking in terms
Mhm.
of like, let's make this be something that whether it's your work or your school or wherever, that people are excited to be
Uh-huh.
in that space.
Yeah, I heard that going back to kind of your office thing, that was one of the big things. We have to make the office a place people want to go.
Yeah.
So if it is just a box with no windows, no one wants to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, and even, I love books and libraries. Libraries are so beautiful these days. It's not just a box where they shove books on shelves.
Yeah.
It's a place that the kids want to go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So our team did the Austin Library. I don't know how
I've never been, but I've seen
Yeah.
pictures. Yes.
So when I first started, that was one of the I went down there and spent the day with the team there and kind of got familiar with some of the local Austin projects.
Uh-huh.
And they took me on a tour there. I'm like, it's like 3 stories with these
Yeah.
outdoor spaces and these big windows and
Uh-huh.
these wooden beams. I mean, it's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
And so yes, that's another great example. And that's a public space.
Right.
And that's for everybody to
Uh-huh.
go and enjoy. And people were. I mean, we were there in the middle of the day, and it was just so cool to see someone out on the balcony with their book and the little learning spaces. And so it's really interesting to see all that.
Hmm. Yeah, I compare a lot of these spaces, like you said, your middle school, and it's like, gosh, I'm like, I'm not 1,000 years old,
Yeah.
but sometimes I feel like, well, the library that I had growing up, it was in the basement of a building, like,
Yeah, I
who
feel
wants to
like
go there?
I feel like all my schools, the library was like very central in the building with like no windows outside. I mean, you might get a skylight maybe if you're lucky. So yeah, it's been nice to see that shift.
Yeah, that's really it's exciting to see that, like being in the industry.
Yeah.
So many times people think that buildings just, oh, here it is, but it took 5 years of planning and design and all of that to make it actually happen.
Yeah.
What sort of advice do you have for any listeners who may be in similar fields? So maybe similar field or a business developer. What kind of advice do you have for people?
Gosh, advice, that's so broad. Let me think about that one for just a second
Okay.
here. I mean, I think just in general, back to I keep emphasizing network, but I think that this whole industry is built on relationships, and so there's two pieces of that, right? Like it's the business developer or maybe um a industry professional who is doing some sort of networking and relationship building. But then you got to be able to deliver on what you are advertising. And I think that's something that's worked really well for our company and many companies in this space is just having that longevity and that experience and the talented individuals to deliver on what we are saying we're able to do. And so I think that's authenticity. I think sometimes it means turning projects down if they're not the right fit, or having candid conversations with owners or whoever you're trying to work with who maybe this is why we aren't the right fit for this particular project, but this is where we would really shine. And so I think just honesty and candor and being authentically yourself. And I think that there's a lot of people who excel in this industry, and they have very different personalities and experiences, and being able to draw on what those experiences were, even if it meant you started out in photography or in corporate communications, you have something to bring to the table with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. What is something that you're most passionate about in your job of business development, and what are some of your future goals? We can probably break those up.
Okay, so
most passionate.
I really enjoy people, and I think that's something that I found in my personal life before I got into this business development role. My husband and I love to, a little less so because we have an almost 2-year-old now, but we love to host parties and we love to host our friends. And it's not necessarily something overly fancy. We've kind of always been the ones who are like, tomorrow's a big football game. We should invite 20 people over and put a gumbo on, and we'll just figure it out. And so, and we like to just host people and take care of people. And I think in business development, that's a lot of the same thing, right? It's making sure you're listening to what people's needs are and meeting them where those needs are, and kind of taking care of them. And again, back to if you give someone your word on something, like following through on what that looks like. And so that's been something I'm very passionate about. There's personally and professionally ways I try to just feel like I'm helping people. And it's not like I'm not maybe curing cancer here, but I'm trying to what's my small part.
That can be somebody else's skill set, and they may not be able to do this.
Yeah.
So we would never have a library or a school or so yeah.
In terms of goals, I think the company I work for now we have been around. We have a rich history. We've been around for a long time, and we have such talented engineers, and we are working to make sure sort of our infrastructure fits what our capabilities are. Not we have the engineering side down, but we've grown over the last several years, and so for example, we recently hired an HR person. He had some kind of external help with that, and that's someone who's been a good buddy of mine, coming in, and kind of us being able to work together and kind of put some processes and procedures in place at the company. And so I think the opportunity for just helping shape the future of what again, I'm going to be open to Chicago office. Like that's a new thing. We went outside of Texas. And so I don't have the full scope of what does that opportunity mean for me yet, but I think it's a lot of, we are growing and we are getting bigger and bigger projects, and just, how are we able to shape just what the company looks like and how we, just answer that growth in a very thoughtful way.
Yeah, I like that, because you can't do everything. You can't take everything on. And so it's nice if you can be known as, we do this, this, and this, and we're really great at it. So then the phone is just ringing because we're like, hey, it has all these projects and it's the perfect fit. So
yeah.
Okay, so moving on kind of to personal stuff. Oh, wait, sorry, I had one more question on here. What is a struggle that you guys have been having, and how are you tackling it? So it could be a BD struggle, it could be I don't know, just something going on engineering wise.
Well, I think a fortunate challenge to have is we are trying to recruit some additional talent. We have some really big projects in the pipeline. We're on the convention center project here.
Nice. That's exciting.
It's a big project. And so again, back to that growth we've experienced, and it's not just this one project by any means. It's just we have a high volume of work right now. And it seems like there's fewer engineers coming out of school these days. So that's a challenge of just like, how are we filling that pipeline and how are we making sure we have good talent? And so that's something that we I know many people in this industry are faced with that challenge right now.
Mhm.
Just like recruiting is tough. And I think, again, I think it's a mixture of reasons. One of which I think COVID and just a lot of people shifted jobs and what they look like and refocused things. And
Mhm.
some people left the
Yeah.
workforce and didn't come back.
Yeah.
Some people refocused how they want to spend their time with family. And so that may mean something different for their job. And so anyway, there's a lot of, I think, headwinds in terms of hiring and recruiting right now. And we've gratefully, we have had several new recent hires, and we've started we have a, kind of laugh with our engineers because we have a very small pool of schools that we look at
Okay.
in terms of recruiting.
Yeah.
But we've opened that up a little bit. We've got some good talent out of that we're really
Good.
excited about. So it, again, kind of back to that, where are we going as a company and how are we thinking, how are we open to new ways of doing things, or maybe just tweaking the ways we've done things in the
Mhm.
past.
It's interesting. I've been encouraging our team to post on their personal LinkedIn that we're hiring.
Yes.
And one of our guys in drywall posted, and a man reached out, and 2 weeks later, he came on board.
Yeah.
And so I posted last week, and I immediately got a response from someone in the industry, and her husband is looking. And so I got his resume, and we're interviewing him on tomorrow.
That's great.
And so I'm like, oh, maybe these, we think about all this big, we have to go to this recruiting fair and that recruiting fair. And I definitely think you do need to do those things. But I'm like, maybe just that relationship
Yeah.
of a LinkedIn post and someone is looking. And so I'm gonna kind of fast forward that a little bit just on my personal LinkedIn because we're hiring as well.
We've been exploring that as well. I mentioned we have a new HR person in our office, and so she's been kind of spearheading those efforts, but I've been involved in those conversations. And same thing, we've been trying some of the tools on LinkedIn, and then
Uh-huh.
some of the, you pair the tool with your actual outreach. And so, but that's new to us. We didn't do that before.
Right.
So,
Well, fingers crossed you guys can find some more people.
yeah.
And we need to cross your fingers for us as
Yeah.
well.
We'll root for each other.
Yeah. Okay, so now moving on to some fun kind of personal things. I know the answers to some of these things, but our listeners do not. What are some of your hobbies outside of work?
Yeah, I kind of laugh. I have an abundance of hobbies, and some of them have shifted over the years, or I've always been someone who's been into fitness, and I do as well. And so I've kind of tried or done everything fitness wise under the sun. These days, that is still a big part of my life, but maybe a little bit more focused on what I'm doing. And otherwise, I've started doing hand embroidery, which I really enjoy. And I've always been a creative, and so finding I really am very middle brained. I've kind of always said I'm very middle brained. And so I like having some creativity, and then I also like some structure. And I do enjoy a good spreadsheet and some things like that. So anyway, I've been doing the hand embroidery, which has been fun because I draw a lot of my designs, and then I have a little boy and I have another one on the way. And so I've been able to do that on like little kids clothing, and it's just something I've enjoyed. And then I also I've been doing a lot of flower arranging, which is a lot of fun and creative. And who doesn't enjoy nice flowers?
Fresh flowers,
So,
everybody loves them.
yeah. So I would say for now, those have been a big hobby of mine. My husband and I enjoy traveling and eating and all those things, which I feel like can be a little cliche, but it's true. We like to plan trips. So there's always that too.
So since following you and following your embroidery journey of your Easter basket thing, then now all this stuff is popping up on my Instagram account and about embroidery, and I'm like, oh no, do I need another hobby right now?
Well, let me know if you're interested. It's funny. I've only been doing it about a year, and this sounds so silly, but obviously a lot of us unwind in the evenings by watching Netflix or whatever is on TV at the moment. And I often do it while I'm like sitting there watching TV. And it's one less screen in front of me because I don't have my phone that I'm scrolling through. And so it's been a nice thing to kind of keep, I hate to say focus because I'm kind of multitasking, but a little more, I also just feel productive with it. Like I'm one of those people who likes to feel like maybe too much pressure to feel productive all the time.
Me too.
But it's enjoyable to feel like there's something that comes from that at the end.
Every time I see that, I think about when I was little and I was in 4-H. I always entered the craft, and there was like an embroidery. So
Yes.
every year I had like 2 embroidery things,
Oh,
and I'm just
nice.
like, oh, I kind of know how to do
Yeah.
this. Do I
So
need to do it again?
I was just saying, in case you get the itch, then you're already kind of like up on it. So
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, and like with the flower arranging, this sounds silly, but I've been kind of keeping nice jars
yeah,
where if I just go over to somebody's house, I'll pick up a little bouquet and put it in like, it's because nobody
yes.
needs another vase in their
Yeah.
life. And
Yes.
so I'm like, just recycle
Yeah.
this jar when you're done. But here in the meantime is a pretty flower arrangement.
That's great, and I'm sure it brightens their day.
Let's see. Do you have a defining moment or philosophy that you live by?
Hmm. I don't know that I like live by this, but I remember hearing, this is not like an uncommon phrase, but I remember hearing, you're not a tree.
Mm.
You are not planted and rooted with
Oh, I
great
like that.
heart. So if you are not happy in some situation, whether that's personal or professional, um, move, like figure it out. And that doesn't always necessarily, I think, mean completely leaving the situation. But it may mean rethinking how you do that thing. So maybe from a professional perspective, perhaps it's staying at a company but doing things a little bit differently, or moving into a different role. Or again, I moved from Baton Rouge to Dallas a few years after college. I was I was I was in a great spot there. I still have so many great friends in Baton Rouge, and I had a lot of good things going there, but I was looking for a change, and it felt a little overwhelming to just do it, but I did it, and not that people don't move often. That's not earth shattering, but I think it's easy to just take the easy route a lot of times. And I think partly back to the having so many hobbies, we've only got this one life to live, not to be overly sentimental about it, but what are you going to do with that time? It doesn't have to be defined by someone else's version of success.
Right, right. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Who or what inspires you the most?
What inspires me the most? I don't know that there's like one particular person or thing. I think that it's a series of um again, a lot of interests, and so just seeing a lot of different people, whether it's people who are close to me who I actually know and respect a lot, and seeing their success. And I think oftentimes it's not a straight line, and that's something you have to like recognize is you often only hear about people's successes, but when you really sit and talk with them, they had setbacks or challenges, on a level of someone I don't know. Uh, oh my gosh, I'm blanking her name. Sarah Blakely, right? The Spanx woman.
Yeah.
Um, so her dad, apparently, first of all, wildly successful woman. I find her so interesting and fascinating. Follow her on Instagram. She's comes across at least as so down to earth, which I find really refreshing. Her dad used to make her, when she was growing up, her and her siblings at the dinner table, he would say, "What did you do to fail this week?" And I thought that was so interesting because it really taught her at an early age that failure is going to happen. It is part of your journey, and you've got to learn how to overcome it. I think growing up, I think for a lot of us who are successful now, it was like, you must be straight A's, you must do this. And it wasn't even necessarily, I don't think, pressure from like my parents. They were very like, do what makes you happy and be happy. Society is just like, this is how success is defined. It's not failing.
Right.
And I think it's so refreshing when you can hear either people at that level or people more close to you in their life, in your life. Often people who are really successful had some really tough setbacks. And it's because they were willing to take risks. And then that risk, if it didn't work out, that didn't end their opportunities forward, right? Like they were like, well, let's figure this out. And here's what I learned from it. And well, now I'm going to try this. And so to me, I think that's just really inspiring, is to hear most people who have a really successful life and career. It wasn't always easy, and it wasn't a straight line.
Well, and life and social media these days that we all live by, it's just the highlight reels. Like you're not allowed to post those things, or you don't feel like you should post those things. I can't remember the guy that I follow on Instagram, but he's a young man and he interviews millionaires, billionaires. I can't think of his handle right now. And good on him. He does a good job. And I mean, the people answer all of his questions because he asks good, but he always says, how much money did you make?
Yeah.
And then he says, did you ever fail or were you ever broke?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, every single person is like, oh my gosh, let me tell you. Or they'll say, well, I wasn't broke, but I lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then they kind of explain the situation. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's our generation or something, but all of that got tossed under the rug because you're not allowed to have those failures for whatever reason. And that's really when you grow and you learn and how can I do it better?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think social media is a bit of a double-edged sword because, and in fact, it's funny, on my own personal social media, my little like tagline says like highlight reel because like it is.
That's what it is.
It is the smiling faces. You didn't see the tantrum that my child threw before we took the photo, right? Or whatever the case is. But I think in some ways people have gotten so inauthentic with this like perfect whatever that now we're kind of swaying back the other way and people are eager to hear the more behind the scenes. I read Ina Garten's book recently, which I didn't really know her full story and I don't know how familiar you are with it, but she had a really tough upbringing. Her parents were difficult. And then her and her husband both, they just weren't risk adverse. They were just willing to take these big risks. And some of them, I mean, like these examples, there was 2 houses that they bought and they quickly figured out we can't afford these houses. We have to sell them. And really, and they're very smart people, both very, very successful in their own right. But I think people are now more willing to say, oh no, this wasn't easy. And not only not easy, but these were the things where I totally failed at. And then look where I am today.
Maybe this will be our question at the next Ladies in CRE.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm going to make a note on that.
You always have the best questions.
Okay, so I have a little quick fire round section that I don't make quick fire because then I want to ask you more questions about. What is the last book you read?
Was Ina Garten's book no. The Tell is the last book I read by Amy Griffin.
Okay.
That's a tough story. Again, It's a memoir.
Oh.
Excuse me. She is a big investor, very successful, and had some back to challenges, had some big personal challenges growing up. So that was the last book I read. I read all kinds of things. I'm like you. I like a lot of fiction and nonfiction. So now I'm reading Elin Hildebrand book. A much more lighthearted, like I kind of need to swing from the very serious topic to something a little lighter.
And next Monday is my book club and it's my month to pick.
Yeah.
And we're all such avid readers. We now have to bring like 5 choices.
Yes.
Because somebody has always read something. And so I think we pick maybe like there's 8 of us. So every 8 months.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh no, what book do I pick? Like this is very important.
It's a very matter.
What is your favorite quote?
Favorite quote. What's my favorite quote? I don't know that I have one favorite quote.
You don't have to have one.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Very much paid contractors to do the work. But I'm constantly like, I'm creative. Could I wallpaper a room? Could I do? And so I don't know that there's like one particular skill. I think back to that having many hobbies. There's just a lot of things, and I'm kind of like,
I bet we have somebody here that can teach you how to
probably
do some wall covering.
Probably so. And so I don't know, things like that. I just like to learn, and so it's not necessarily like one skill set, but I think kind of depending on where I am in my life and what I'm focused on. Like I said, house right now is a big thing, and so I'm like, could I do that myself?
I think there's a lot of things we could do. But after we learn how to do it, is it too hard, or does it hurt your back?
Or is it just worth maybe paying someone else to do it for a third of the time it might take me to do it?
Yeah. What is the favorite city that you have visited?
I feel like this is a cliche answer, but Paris is like my favorite city.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only been there a couple of times, and this is such an obnoxious thing to say. I strive to be one of those people who goes for the weekend to Paris, right? And which is not really realistic.
Yeah.
But I just think it's such a the French culture has always really interested me, and it's just I like big cities, but I feel like there's a lot of like laissez-faire attitude there too. Like just sit on the park bench and watch everyone go by for the day and have your, cappuccino or whatever. So, I enjoy traveling and seeing a lot of places, and it's always tough to like, do we go back to the same place? But I really enjoy Paris.
So several years ago, we went to Santa Fe for every season because we loved it so much. We're like, well, but now we need to know what it's like in summer. And now we need to know what it's like in spring.
Yes.
And so we love Santa Fe. We love the hiking, the food, the everything. And we've been there so many times. We're comfortable.
It's like second home.
Yeah. But then it's like there's other places with mountains and good food and
I know that's constantly the struggle. And while I do enjoy big cities, I really love, like, we've been to the countryside of France and some other countries, and just the countryside even of the States, and so it's kind of this constant battle too of like, I like to be outdoors. And so do you want to go do the mountain hiking thing or the beach thing, or go to a big city and have croissants and cappuccinos? So
I would like to do all the things.
Same.
Let's see. What is your favorite construction project that you have been a part of?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think probably the first job I was at when I got into this industry, when I was at the architecture firm, the first project, I'm now blanking on the name, but it was a big student housing project because we did a lot of student housing. And I'm obviously such a minor role by the time it hits construction and business development. But it was the first project that I had really worked on that relationship and worked with. I worked closely with our president there and worked with him to really earn that business. We hadn't worked with this partner in the past, and I know they're still doing work with them. And it was a really big student housing project in Reno, actually.
Oh.
And so it just, it was a year of, I know they had done some previous work trying to get in with this group. But it was a year of that relationship building and showcasing what we could do. And so they finally gave us a shot. And that was my first like win under my belt of like something I was a participant to. So I think that's probably stands out in my mind, because it's also, at that point I'd switched careers, and it takes a while to get kind of a project under your belt with something like that.
For sure.
And so it was a year in, and that was the moment where I felt like, okay, I can do this.
Nice. Nice.
That kind of stands out.
Yeah. What is a piece of advice to someone just starting out in the industry?
Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to, get to know a lot of different people, and both in your company and outside of it. I mean, I think sometimes it's easy to just sort of stay in your lane, but ask a lot of the questions, understand what each person in your company does. And, in our case, for example, we are a subcontractor to the architect. So for me, it's really important to understand, like, I did work in architecture firms, so I largely understand that, but like, what is the architect's role? And then what is the MEP's role? And get to know those people. And where does civil come in? And you guys, I mean, with painting, like, at what point does that come in? There's so many pieces to this puzzle. One project takes so much work and so many hands, so much planning and city approvals and just all these things. And there's so much to learn. And so whether you are the architect or the engineer or the BD or whatever, the painter, whomever it is, like, get to know the process soup to nuts, and get curious about things.
And it's interesting too, because I feel like we kind of have this imaginary org chart of importance in this industry, but it takes all of us.
It does.
If there's not a structural engineer, there's no project.
Yeah.
If there's no painter, there's no project, And so I think it's interesting, especially moving to the sub side now, how people put themselves on ladders of importance. And I'm like, but ultimately at the end of the day, we all need one another.
We all need each other. And I think that's been so interesting to me in this industry, is like, it is an ecosystem. And so get to know what that looks like.
Ooh, that's an even better phrase for it, rather than like an org chart. Like I've been describing it. Oh, I like that a lot.
It's fun.
Okay. Is there anything that you wanted to include that I haven't asked?
I don't think so. I feel like you've done such a thorough job.
Okay. And I checked your little form, and I think that we've gone over everything on here.
Yeah.
So I will add Datum's website, their LinkedIn, your LinkedIn. Are there any other places that you want us to find you personally or Datum on social media or anything?
No, I mean,
Okie
we
dokie.
barely have a LinkedIn present. We're working on that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today. This is going to be good.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you. I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.